Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. And we are recognizing that it's National Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. I'd like to salute to all the men out there struggling internally, but seeking the help and support that they need. What if the strongest looking person in the room is carrying the heaviest secret? Today, we're talking about what happens when a world champion, someone the world sees as unbreakable, decides to finally break the silence. He's a world champion fitness athlete, the author of The Breaker, co-host of Soul Fit TV, founder of The Breaker Mission, and a man who spent over 30 years hiding childhood trauma behind trophies, magazine covers, and a perfectly sculpted exterior until he chose vulnerability over performance and healing over hiding. He is here to show us that breaking free is not a weakness. It is the most courageous act a human being can actually do. Please put your hands together and help me welcome Micah LaCerte. Hey, welcome. Hey, how are you?
Thank you so much for having me. Yes, I appreciate that intro, and I feel blessed to be here, Tanya.
We appreciate you. Welcome, and we thank you very much for being our guest. Yeah, it's a busy time, I know, for you, so thank you again.
Absolutely.
So here we go. I'll just go right in. Here we go. I have the speaker here. Sorry about that. So Micah, you have appeared on over 100 magazine covers, and you built a whole fitness empire. On the outside, everything looked perfect, right? But what was actually happening on the inside of all those years?
I mean, I think to take it back for the viewer to understand what was going on, at age 18, I was really struggling with anxiety and depression. Panic attacks were happening. I went through 10 years of childhood sexual abuse by a man that used God to hurt me and manipulate me in a really horrific way. When you go through something like that as a man or as a little girl or as a little boy, you don't really understand how to process that. You just know, I'm like, there is no way I'm ever going to share this with anyone. And so at 18, I'm struggling again with anxiety and depression. And I found the gym and I started working out. And in my mind, I thought, if I get big enough muscles, no one will ever hurt me ever again. Like it was a coat of armor for me. And little did I know at the time what it was going to do for my mental state. Within weeks of starting to work out and live this lifestyle that I've now lived for over 30 years, anxiety, depression started depleting. I mean, I started feeling great, but that childhood abuse that I went through was still in there. So that interior was still really hiding and suffering. That outside, although my appearance was getting better and better and I was achieving all these things, inside I was still dying.
Mm, 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 mm. So what did your childhood look like with that? And, how did you carry it alone so long?
That's a great question. I think you have to make a decision that every single person that goes through what I went through has to make. And it is almost a daily decision. I was really struggling with, why am I even here? Why am I even like in this world? Right? Like, because when your innocence is stolen from you from that level of abuse, the amount of shame and I don't want to take away from a little girl getting abused, but I'm speaking to men right now specifically because the shame piece for men is really, really suffocating. It feels like you're constantly drowning. And we have this societal stigma that is on us that it's like, we can't ever share this. This is going to make us look weak, even to our wives. Like, we can't share it to our wives. We can't share it to our friends. People are going to think about what they would think. And you would never share this. And so what happens in your mind is you're like, I don't even want to be here. Like, I can't hold this. And so a lot of people turn to drugs, or a lot of people turn to alcohol, pornography, food. My vice was success and accolades. I really believed that if I could get on enough covers of magazines, become world champion, acquire all the success, that it would somehow fill the hollow hole that was inside of me, that was still suffering every single day, and ultimately trying to protect that little boy that got hurt at the age of 5 to 15. And
Wow.
that's really, that's really what it was. And I was surviving, is the word. You're surviving. It's like you're constantly, day by day, drowning internally, but you can't even ask for help. It's so hard. Like, you really can on the other side of it, but internally you're like, there's no way I could ever tell anyone.
Right. So how did you make sense of what was happening to you as a kid? Because that's, like you
I
said, that's
don't
hard for
I,
process.
Well, as a child, your brain is not fully functioning right. And so what the brain does at that age, whether it be a little girl or a little boy, is we do things called like disassociation. And so it's very common in the trauma world, if you understand what that is, you create almost like an alternate reality of what is really happening. And so I had a really tough upbringing. We moved 30 times in 18 years. I had a single parent family. My mom was hustling, trying to make it work, but there was a lot of men in and out of my life that were just not great men. And I have a great relationship with my father now, but he wasn't in the picture when I was little. And so this is how this pedophile essentially came in. This monster came in and then was able to access me, because he knew I needed a man so badly, and then to use the name of Jesus and use the name of God to then manipulate me. I can't even, like, the sexual abuse was really bad. The spiritual abuse was like, that was as hard, if not harder, to get through.
Right, right. Well, they say that that's usually what they look for is either single mothers, or maybe the house home the house the two, even if it's a two-family home, everything's not so coherent, and there's a lot of things going on. Maybe abuse, maybe the other stuff going on. They're not parents not getting along. They look for vulnerable children. And so this is key for us to know, especially with our boys, because like you said, a lot of times we think, oh, they're boys, they'll be fine, but that's not true. We're finding it's just as prevalent as girls. It may be even worse. Who knows? But because men are not told or encouraged, is the word, to speak up, because we're told, oh, you can't tell that. Don't, even everyone's family says, keep it to your family business. Don't tell that. But especially boys throughout society have been, they would feel a certain different type of shame, even though that's not true. They shouldn't be ashamed, but they're going to feel that way, especially if they come from like the man household. Is like, that doesn't happen around here. That whole stereotype thing. So it's important that we pay attention, especially if you're a single mother, or if you are having a very, you don't have another partner that's helping out with your kids. It's so important to watch who you bring in your circle, because your kids are the unfortunate beneficiary of their whatever illness, right? Or whatever you want to call it. I don't know. But I just talked to someone today about this. That is so, the vulnerability is so important, and we don't understand. Sometimes we send our kids right to the very people they shouldn't be with. Uh, it's You carried this for what, more than 3 decades before speaking publicly.
Yeah,
What made
and
you decide?
I'm kind
Mhm. Sorry.
yeah. So I'm kind of like the normal statistic for the men that actually do speak out. So it takes on average 21 years for a man to disclose, and 28 years to go into detail on average, but up to 90% of men never say a word. So I want you guys, the viewers right now, to understand the impact that this makes on a family generationally, like
Mm,
massive, horrific impact. because that man can't hold it in. So he was abused. And now we're in a situation where he can't be the father he needs to be. He can't be the friend. He can't be the dad. He's trying to survive. He is still holding on and protecting that 7-year-old little boy inside of him, not understanding how to even get through this and the healing that is in this. And all while, you know, he has these responsibilities as the dad and as the husband, and he is just, he, that man deep inside more than likely is like, man, I don't know if I want to do this life anymore. And we're seeing such high suicide rates. We're seeing such high addiction. We have so many men in prison and all of this. And I would bet that at least 25 to 50% of those men in prison, maybe even more, went through something I went through, but have never been able to share that.
The number is staggering. In fact, Sonny Von Cleveland just gave a stat yesterday that was shocking to me about online stuff, and that even Meta in some places actually knew about these things, but they're not doing the right safety measures. So it's up to us to really know this information and figure out how can we apply this to us if we have children or we have grandchildren, because it's happening more. It's like the more we talk about it, the more it's happening. I'm like, but why? It should be less, not more. It's we have to create a environment that feels safe for men and for boys to speak about these things, because it's still, there's still, I've seen people who I know have had a hard time, but they won't bring it out, and it comes out in many other ways, like you said, addictions, various types of addictions, food, sex, you name it, porn, whatever. It comes out in many ways. But what do you think? I don't know. What made you finally decide to tell? Because it takes a lot to share.
So I'll share exactly the timeline of what happened. So um, when I got abused, I actually let my mother know kind of what happened. And, you know, she responded properly. And I want the viewers out there, if anyone, especially a man and a woman, but if a man shares this, you have to understand this is the scariest, most vulnerable space that this man is ever in, especially if it's one of the first or second times he's ever shared this with anyone. And how you hold that really matters. How you respond really matters. It can destroy him if you respond improperly. So just hold that with him. You're not trying to fix him. You just want to hold that with him and share with him how strong he is for sharing that with you. So I told my mother first. And then when I was 19 years old, that was at around the age of 11 and then 15. At 19, I was forced to share because my abuser got caught and went to prison. And so I had to speak with a detective and share my story. Now you got to remember, like, the thought of telling like a grown masculine man in that setting, I was weeping like a little boy, you know, like I was shaken. I was terrified. And how that man responded to me really kind of changed me a little bit, because he just said, thank you so much for being so strong. And I just remember those words. And even though I wasn't ready to open up at that time, how he responded really mattered. And then, fast forward, I really didn't tell anybody else for the most part, up until I told my wife. I met her in Las Vegas at a fitness expo. And I'll tell you, my walk wasn't really good at that point. I had some questions about God and why I would go through something as rough as I did. And I met my wife at 28, and I told her within almost a day of meeting her what I had went through. I really believed that this was going to be my wife, and I laid it kind of all out on the table that day. And I just felt so safe with her. And so my wife has always known pretty much from day one what I went through. I wasn't going to hide anything from her. And that has really made our relationship outside of our faith foundation, our relationship so solid since day one. And we're celebrating 15 years of marriage next year and 18 years together. And
Wow.
and then it was 9 years ago, Tanya, 9 years ago, I was at a Carrie Job concert. And God, the Holy Spirit, spoke to me in a way that I had never felt before. And I'm like weeping. I'm kind of like, you know, when the Holy Spirit hits you, you like really know as a believer, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I saw
Yes.
this vision of sharing my story on a stage. And I was like, no, Lord. I was like, no, I can't do that. You know, I can't do that. I'm not ready to do that. And all I kept hearing was, I've taken you this far. I need you to be a strong masculine voice in this space because it's so dark and so many of my children are suffering, and I need you to do this. And I went through 7 years of intensive healing, guided by the Lord, with my wife by my side, and a lot of other people came in. And now, being on the other side of it, I have a fire inside me that is greater than any championship, any cover of any magazine, anything, because I want people to get to freedom and have a life with purpose, to be able to help other people and be the dad and be the husband that they were created to be.
Oh, wow. That is powerful. That is powerful. Well, your book is called The Breaker. For those of you who see, there it is right there. Please go out and get the book. What does that title mean to you personally? And you know, what are we breaking free from?
Ooh, well, the title, you don't find out what the title is until you get into the book, but I'll share with your viewers what it means. So in the book of Micah in the Bible, it is essentially the only place in the Bible that Jesus is referred to as the breaker. So when you see the breaker mission, it means the Jesus mission. But people won't know that until they read, because even a lot of believers, they don't know that was one of his names. And so in that passage, it talks about essentially Jesus building the path before us to then go through the gates. And when I read that, I'm looking at my own story of like, I need a path. What is that path to get to healing and to get to those gates of freedom that I'm looking for? And that's really what God led my wife to a devotional of Micah 2:13 over a year ago. And that's how the name came about. And then if you look into Micah 2, this is where it gets wild, and my mind was blown. When you look at Micah 2, it talks about the evildoer plotting what he plans to do in his bed. Micah 2. And for me, that is like the profile of what a pedophile is. They groom and manipulate for years. They're not impulsive. They're very manipulative. They may groom for years before they make the act, because they want to have full control. And so the book of Micah itself is about protecting the vulnerable. And so those passages, I knew that was from God. Like that was like God showing us exactly what it was meant and what it was supposed to be called.
Wow, I never even noticed that. But now I'm gonna have to take a look at that. Wow. For someone that's listening right now, who may be hiding his pain behind success or achievement, what would you want them to hear first?
I want them to know that, number one, it's not their fault. Number two, that it's possible. There is a path to true freedom and healing. Number three, if they want healing, they have to make the commitment to themselves. If they have faith in their life, make that commitment to the Lord as well. And then the fourth thing that I would do is, if there is someone in their life that they truly love, that they truly trust, whether that be a close friend, a brother, a sister, a wife, whoever that may be, when you feel it's right, I would sit down and really share with them potentially what you went through in your time when you feel comfortable with that. It's going to be really scary, but that's one of the first steps to, I think, healing, is to be able to actually communicate it and then really find a community. You know, we're building that with the Breaker mission. But there's a lot of resources out there on my site that can help men that maybe want to be anonymous still. They're still not ready to maybe open up publicly. but they need someone to talk to. And so I have resources on there for those men and those women too.
Okay. We'll put the website up there. Well, how did shame specifically show up daily in your life, even, even during the moments that look like your biggest wins?
Yeah, I mean, shame was, I believe it's the devil's number one grip on men is shame. I can't explain it outside of it's suffocating. It's just like it's trying to swim, but you're just gargling water. Like it's like enough oxygen to live, but not enough to like thrive in life. And shame, it just it changes almost your entire identity. Like I remember not even recognizing myself for an extended period of time. Like and you don't realize until you get on the other side of it, but when that weight is lifted off, how free you are, how much weight is actually lifted off. I use analogies and kind of stories to really share, and as you get into the book, like that's how we navigate it. And I remember just feeling like I was in a swampland for so long, and then when I finally took a few little steps, I was able to get to dry land. But I look up at the mountaintop and I'm like, man, that is a long journey. And I got back,
Mhm.
but eventually I ended up, taking those steps up that mountain and that courage enough to do it. And I started climbing the mountain and I was able to get to the peak of the mountain. And then that weight was just lifted, a freedom that I really want every man and woman that has experienced what I have gone through to know that freedom is there. Freedom is available.
Mm. Mm. So I know you're blessed because fitness actually saved your life in many ways, but it also became a place to hide. Can you talk about the tension between using your strengths as shelter versus using them as healing?
Ooh, that's a great question because I didn't realize I was doing it for a long time until I realized it.
Mm.
And like so the gym for me was a safe place. That's number one. It was a safe place for me. It was a place that I got a lot of respect in because you can't fake a phenomenal body. Like you have to have discipline, you have to have work, you got to eat
Yes.
right, you got to do the things. Like that outer shell is your choices that you're making every single day, sometimes for decades. So what became this amazing positive catalyst for me was also something that was like debilitating because I thought, what if I lose this? Then I'm left with nothing. Then
Mm.
it's really going to get exposed.
Mhm.
You see what I'm saying? So it was like, even though it wasn't a drug per se, like, what we would look at as drugs or alcohol, it
Right.
was my way of surviving. So if that would have been taken away from me, I don't know what I would have done at that point. And
Mm.
so, yeah, that's a great question.
Well, that's interesting that you say that because it's so like a crutch, right? How would we do that? Like if we are, I mean, I think it's clever in many ways, just like our body builds up defenses to protect us from our actual abuse. So that's where people get split personalities. They may get there's a lot of things that could happen, but those are protecting mechanisms that unfortunately we can't drop. So that's how you end up getting labeled with a schizophrenic diagnosis or whatever. But I think it's also good when it's something like fitness because had you not had that, what else would you have done, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it.
I don't know if I honestly don't. Like fitness saved my life. In the book, I talk about three different lifelines that came into my life, and fitness at that particular point, I truly believed it saved my life. And so when I look at it, and what we know about fitness right now is it is the most effective thing on the planet for anxiety and depression, which were kind of byproducts to the abuse. Right. I had gone through this abuse. It started manifesting in ways that were uncontrollable for me, in panic attacks and anxiety. I had lost, potential scholarships. I couldn't go to school. Like, it was a really bad time for me. I had lost my identity and who was I, and then being able to almost rebuild it, and rebuild this house or this vessel, and yes, it was an armor on the outside, but like we talked about earlier, internally, I was still protecting that little boy that was hurt. And so, like, I didn't know where to start with it or whatnot. But in the meantime, it was kind of what it was helping me maintain pain tolerance is really what fitness did for me. And there was a lot of positivity to fitness and eating right.
Right. I mean, I think that's a good processing method, because even if you're not getting therapy or even discussing it yet, you're setting off those endorphins and you're releasing something, internally that will just keep you at least stable, as I would say, so I think it's a good thing. And you turned it happened to be your superpower in the end. It actually led you to your superpower. How about that?
Yeah.
So, I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
I know that faith.
And real quick with fitness and workout, I want people to understand this. Like, the way that our bodies are created when we're active, it releases, you talk about endorphins, but there's something called a myokine that is literally in our muscle. But the only way it's activated is through the contraction of a muscle. So when we do a bicep curl, or we're doing a squat or a lunge or whatever it is that we're doing, that's released into the bloodstream and then goes through our brain barrier to give us this feeling to dissipate things like anxiety and depression. And so I didn't know it at the time, but like, God had been like, you're going to really love working out, and this is what's going to save you during this time until you get your eyes back on me. Because it took me a long time to get through the spiritual abuse and trying to figure out everything that was kind of going on that space.
Wow. Yes. So that's a double whammy. That's amazing. Working out, any kind of exercise, running, walking, really helps. Even if you're going through something right now, gentlemen, even if you can't get to the therapist, you can't get to the processing yet. If you just walk, 2 miles a day, go to the gym or figure something like that out, that'll keep you maintaining just until you get to where you feel safe, that you can actually talk and release. That's so important. So I noticed faith played a major role in your journey. At what point did your relationship with God shift from something you knew about to something that actually began to heal you?
Yeah. So I was taught about God from my mom very early on, and Jesus specifically, as a Christian. And so this man, when he came into my life, he was what appeared to be walking much closer. And so when I say walking, I mean following. He was following a much more biblical way of life specifically. And so he was teaching me about Jesus. He's teaching me about, whatnot. But I think what you have to understand, and I didn't know this until I was an adult, is sometimes faith in God and the Bible and whatnot gets used towards children as a way of disciplinary or sometimes manipulation rather than actually teaching a relationship with Jesus. And that's a big difference. The laws opposed to relationship. And I didn't understand that when I was a child. And so, I'm crying out to the Lord as I'm getting abused, going, why aren't you protecting me? I'm a good kid. I thought if I was a good kid, God would protect me. And so I didn't understand it. And of course, I walked away. I'm like, I went through church hurt. This person who was proclaiming God is abusing me every night. And so I remember just a period of time, and it was just a really dark period of time from 15 to really where, when I met my wife at 28, that I was really lost, and I was angry with God. And I'll tell those people, because another calling in my heart are those people that went through church hurt, that somebody hurt them using God's name in vain. And I want them to hear me really quickly, that a relationship with Jesus and what that man or that woman did to you are two separate things. Jesus is love and truth. He is not abuse and sexually abusing you. And as humans, we have free will. Can you imagine, Tanya, real quick, like, this man who is proclaiming God, can you imagine what God is screaming in his ear as he's about to abuse me or another child? And he still made that choice. And so, like, I'm thinking to myself, like, conviction, like, man, that level of sickness, I can't even comprehend to hurt a child.
Exactly.
But I will tell you that like, when I turned my eyes and heart back to the Lord through my third lifeline, which was my wife, I ended up finding a freedom that I am in now. And, when we talk about this in the book, because I don't want to scare people off with like religion or this or whatnot. This was my path, but I understood, I really built a true relationship with Christ, and what that did for me and what that man did for you. And then understanding the sacrifice that was in place, and the level of forgiveness that I ended up going through to forgive this man who hurt me, and then be able to just be free. And now being on the other side, and the true superpower now, Tanya, which is vulnerability, and being able to open up in any room, in any platform. Like, I am talking about dumbbells and chicken breast. Like, I can talk about this to anyone at any point with a heart that is pure and is healed and wants to help them if they want that.
Right. Well, that's because you've done the work. See, a lot of people think that they can just, sweep it under the rug, sweep it to the side, and you really can't. You have to really lay it out all on the table, process it. Process it. I do speak English. You have to process it. You have to put it in its correct compartments, and then decide what does it look like? What does healing look like for me? And for you, you chose the path of Jesus. You chose to go the fitness, and you chose to go with counseling and helping others. Other people may choose the same thing or something slightly different. That's okay. But you got to process. And if you don't process, what happens is it will show up in other ways that you thought, oh, I'm all healed. And then you may do things that you're like, why did I do that? I know that's wrong. Or you may say things. You may be with people that you're not supposed to be with. It always shows up if you don't do the healing work for yourself, and I want to say one thing and be clear, because I was a child sexual abuse victim, 7 years old to 15. So I want to say that I hear a lot of preachers and ministers say that if that person says they forgiveness and all the stuff, they can go to heaven if they ask for forgiveness. And I said, I don't see Jeffrey Dahmer in heaven with me ever. Like, ever. He might have said sorry before he got that last whatever, but I just don't see it. And I could be totally wrong. My mother was a minister, by the way. So, I'm a person raised in the word by my forever mom. But that's the one thing that I'm still working on. I'll put it out there that I'm still working on it. That I can, once you ruin a child's life, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, there's no coming back from that. So you can say the forgiveness. Please forgive me. But don't think that you're going to be in heaven eating crumpets with your victims. That's not going to happen. That's my personal opinion.
Well, I'll tell you my view on this. I'll tell you my view on this. I believe in true repentance, but repentance means true repentance.
Right.
That means you are no longer hurting children. That means you have come to a place of getting right with the Lord and doing what is necessary. Because what we're seeing with this sort of predator is they repeat. You're not seeing these cases where they're recovering. They are repeating. Even years in prison, they come out and they repeat again. And so knowing this, these men, these women cannot have access to children. That's how I believe when it comes to this. And and these are red letters. This is Jesus talking in Matthew. He talks about it, also replicates it in Luke when he says, do not hurt my children, do not allow my children to stumble. If you do, it would be better to have a noose around your neck and drown to the bottom of the sea. Jesus understands that when you hurt a child specifically in this way, what it does generationally to the children of their children and vice versa, and all the way down the road, it destroys us. It's one of the worst things that someone can go through. It really is. And it severs a relationship with your faith, with your wife, with your kids. It destroys you. Jesus was not messing around when he talks about that. So we as parents, we as adults, we have to protect kids at all costs.
At all costs. Absolutely. Well, I'm glad someone sees eye to eye with me. I usually get a lot of pushback on that one. But that's just, again, everyone's allowed their opinion, right? I see if it's heaven, I just can't imagine looking around at some people being there on a daily basis. And I'm like, but they had 100 victims or 1,000 victims. How is that forgiveness? I'm confused. Or I'm sorry. Sorry means one time and then you got rehabilitated and you came out and you never did it again. That's sorry. But I've never heard of those cases. I'm sure they exist. I've never heard of them. That's why that particular thing, I'm still working as a child of God to one day say have a little bit more compassion.
We're working every day, Tanya. We're working every day on it.
Every day, I'm working on it. I've worked with pedophiles. Unfortunately, I've worked with all types of people. So I'm working on it. Just bear with me. God is not through with me yet, as they say. So you wrote this book for survivors, but you also wrote it for people who love a survivor and don't know how to help. What is the one thing you want that person to know?
Yeah, I kind of touched on this earlier. And something really unique about this book is my wife is actually the author of the book. And her and I mean, I would lay on the living room floor and she would say, take me to a place. And she's a very gifted writer. And so when she wrote this, she was the only one that could do this. And so in the book, there's many sections that talk about, my wife's name's Diana, about her perspective. So how she's seeing it, which made it even, I think, more powerful of the understanding of maybe that woman or that wife or that sister or whatnot, or the father or brother or whatnot, speaking to his wife or sister. And like, what would you do in that situation? And I'll tell you, the number one thing is do not try to fix them, nor do not try to push them into speaking about it. They have to be ready when they're ready.
Right.
And if you push it, it will cause a lot of damage. They already feel broken. And so when you're trying to sit in there and go, okay, well, here's how we fix this. This is not fixing a car. This is years and years and decades sometimes of absolute destruction inside this man or this woman's body. And so what they just need is for you to hold it with them. Let them break down. If that man starts crying like a 5-year-old little boy, you know that around the age of 5, he was hurt really badly by someone that he loved more than he trusted. Hold that with him. Let him share the entire story. When he's finished up, thank you for your courage. Thank you for your strength. I'm here for you. I want to create a safe home for you so that when you want to go through this journey, I'm here for you. Let's find a community when you're ready. Those are the things I would really start with when it comes to someone who's gone through the abuse and open to speak about it.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So listen, and then let them know it's a safe space. Those are all very, very good points, because a lot of times we don't know what to say after. And that could be a big difference, like you said. So thank you for that piece. Crucial. What does healing actually look like in real life? Once the actual day-to-day process of getting free?
I mean, to go through the healing itself, I'm not going to sit here and say it was an easy 12-week journey and here's the steps you do. And then by the end of week 12, you're perfectly fine and healed. Like that's unfortunately not how this works. And I know a lot of men operate that way. So a lot of men, they're like, what are the exact steps I need to do? And in the book, we break down different tools and steps, but everybody's journey is a little bit different, because their severity of abuse or what they went through specifically. Was it a mother? Was it a father? Was it another boy? Was it a pastor? Like everybody's situation is a little bit different. So we just gave really the general tools that will help you in your healing, but your journey and your path is going to look a little bit different than maybe mine did or yours did.
Right.
There were days, in all honesty, that I felt like I was worse than I was before I even spoke and started the healing. And then you realize that, like, man, I feel like I just went 3 steps back, and then it comes to, fruition that you're thinking like, oh, wait a minute though, I've already gone 10 steps. So I'm still further along than I was before. And then when you're starting to speak about this, it becomes almost easier and easier the more people that you're able to share it with, the people that you trust and love. And that's kind of what my process was. My wife knew about it. I opened up to her family a little bit, her father and her mother, her mother-in-law and her stepmother. And then for me, it was a real tight knit group of my guy friends. And then I kind of went from that to going, all right, Lord, like I'm going to go on this stage and share with all these people my story. And that's how I did it. But that's not what everyone should do. Unless God calls you to do that, that's not everybody's path. I know what God has clearly had me, going towards. And so that's why, my journey of healing was so long too. I mean, I spent 7 years in that to make sure that there was never a man or a woman in front of me that I couldn't speak into authentically. When I said I am free, I am fully free. There wasn't an ounce of me that I would question if I was on a stage or in an intimate conversation with somebody.
Right. And see, that's when you've done the real work and you've done the healing, because it takes just as long as it took for you to get unraveled. It takes a long time to really just get it all together and process it all and figure out where it's going to go and how it's going to look like healing looks like, what that requires for you. Some people is shorter than others, but it still takes a while. It's not an overnight thing, and it's a thing you must work on daily. That's the catch, that people think, oh, I'm healed, I'm fine now, that's it. Nope. You still have to do little tweaks of maintenance, which could be in your Christianity work. It could be in your fitness work. It could be in your journaling work.
Yeah.
I mean, it shows up many ways, but you still have
Right.
to do work, because something, when you least expect it, like it could even be an age change. Maybe you have grandkids, and at the age you abuse, you're gonna have anxiety because you're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to step into my grandkid. So something like that may trigger something that you didn't expect it to trigger. So you always do a maintenance. I call it a maintenance, by making sure you're staying on true to yourself on what each thing that comes up looks like.
Yeah, that's great. I remember along my journey there were multiple things that happened. I remember we own a gym, and when I was really early on in my journey, I remember a child coming in with his mother, and he was probably around the age of 5 or 6 or 7, and it was like it just broke my heart, thinking like that's how little I was. That's how little I was when that happened. And I was not anywhere near to my full healing, but it put it in perspective just how small and how vulnerable I really was, and how evil that man was to do something like that. And so, there were little pieces along the way, and in trauma world we call it like triggers that happen. where
Exactly.
you go into a room that feels similar to, it can be colors of blankets, it can be a wallpaper color, it can be a smell, it can be all sorts of things that will trigger you. And and now when you get on the other side of that, those things don't trigger you the same way.
Mm,
But it's during the journey, it's like really trying to map out everything that is triggering you and try to heal each one of those little wounds.
yes, yes. Healing each one of those wounds is so important. It's it's a if the work you do will depend on, as they say in addiction world, relapse, or things that trigger you to the point of anxiety versus, it was a little bit shifting, but not that shifting. Just take me out of my space that I'm in right now. So that's how you know how much work you need to do, or that you've done,
Yeah.
by how much you're triggered, and to what degree you're triggered. So thank you for that, because it's so crucial. People have to understand that nothing happens overnight, and you must do some work. Like there's some mental antics to go on. There's some physical antics to go on. Taking care of your body, eating right. Going that goes along with taking care of your mind, right? So it's not just one thing.
Yeah.
There's a few things, and having a good team is also important. You sound like you have a good team. Like your family, it could be a family
Yeah.
member. If it was a family member that abused you, maybe your cousins. If it was your cousin, then
Yeah.
obviously pick people that were not on the bad team. Obviously, right? You pick people that
Yeah.
love you,
Yeah.
that support you, understand you, value you, and that they would never be the type of people say, "Oh, just get over that." I had someone tell me that once. Just get over that. Until I gave them the details, then they were like, "Oh," and I was like, "Right, you don't want to get over that, do you?" So they understood after
Yeah.
I was kind of mean about how I went about it, because I had to be, because they were mean to tell me to get over something,
Yeah.
especially at 7 years old. Like, you can't tell a 7-year-old to get over that type of thing. And you have to understand yourself, and you have to know, you have the boundaries, all the above. You have to. Um, so your wife, Diana, we want to give you a big shout out. Awesome book. I hope you guys go out
Yeah.
and get it and read it, because I'm telling you, that is a book, as I say, will save or change a life. We have to have information if we want to heal ourselves or help others heal. That's why I do this show. And that's why pretty much, if you
Yeah.
look back, all my guests are giving you jewels. If you don't take them, I don't know what to tell you. God sent these people, and you just let them go by. I don't know what to tell you. If you really want to heal, you'll be listening, and you'll figure out, what does that mean for me? Because everybody's different, right? So that's important. But back to this. Sorry, you and your wife Diana, you
No,
built, yeah, you built. Let me see if I say it right. Hitch Fit and Soul Fit together.
yeah.
How did your
Yeah.
trauma affect? How did your trauma affect your marriage, and what did the healing process do for your relationship?
Yeah, I mean, because I told my wife so early on, I'm telling you guys out there, and this is really difficult because it's very common for the husband specifically never to share with his wife, or if he does, it's many years down the road
Mhm.
into a marriage. I can't tell you the amount of men that have like, man, I've told you, but I still haven't told my wife, and we've been married for 15 years. And I remember one specific moment, and we were in my kitchen with this man, and we sat down, and I had told him about my story and everything that was going on. And my wife just said, what is your biggest fear by telling your wife? And I knew the answer. I knew the answer to the question already. She's gonna think I'm weak, that I'm disgusting, that I'm worthless. She's not going to love me anymore. Those are the lies of the enemy that goes into someone that goes through something like that. And I'll tell you what, by the grace of God and just our boldness in saying that there's freedom in this, he ended up telling his wife, and we ended up seeing him soon after that. And this man was on fire. Like, he was so lit up. I mean, we were at an event, and he's just sharing his story with everybody. And I was like, what is going on? But that is that freedom of that next level with your relationship. In my faith, it's marriage, and then everything else. It's kids, or it's ministry, or whatever it is that you're doing. And so if I got my faith on point, then my marriage was secondary in that number 2 spot. And so me and my wife, now it's just, it's really speaking into people who are going through, really tough times, or they've gone through horrific childhood abuse. And my wife now has all the credentials and stuff. She does trauma healing and work. And so we've really intertwined those into our businesses. And so our businesses are like ministries. They really are. We're doing what's called ecclesia and marketplace ministry, where people are going through healing, regardless if they're a believer or not. We still have the same pathway. And
That's
so
right.
we want to show them love, and we want to show them, we pray for anyone that wants prayer, and really give them a path of freedom from something like this. And so we do that on our retreats. We do that in the gym. We do it randomly at a restaurant if somebody is God is calling us, and someone is in true need of help.
I love that. I love that. I love that it's a team as well. Because I think a lot of things, especially when it comes to abuse, I always feel like it's more effective when you have a team around you. So for some reason, it's like almost like a support system. Is that what yeah, support system. And sometimes you need that at first until you get your own wings to fly and be like, okay, I know what this looks like, and I know what I have to do. There's people that will always uplift you and keep you up, even when you have doubt or you're not sure about, I don't know if I want to do this. So I like that. It sounds like a good team you have there. What do you say to the man, specifically the man, who feels like admitting pain makes him weak or less of a leader?
What we found, which is really interesting, is there are a lot of high earner, successful men who went through what I went through. And so their leadership skills may be at a very high level, top tier space, because they turn to that and not alcohol and the other things. But internally, they're still really struggling. For that man, I would still encourage him to obviously get the healing that is necessary. For the man that has really affected his leadership, and that's not the route he went to, if there's addictions in place, we're going to have to get through the addiction stuff first. We got to get to a place where your body and your mind is operating at a place that is safe for you to be able to heal. Because if we're still allowing those things in and we're making those choices, then the enemy is going to still have control. And so when we get that off the plate, and now we can just focus on a clean, healed person when it comes to the addictions, now we can really start doing the deeper work on the childhood trauma. That's where the root is. So many people focus on the alcohol or the drugs. Those things are important, but it's always the root. It's always the root. And that's why we always encourage people, go to the root, get curious about the root, get courageous about the root. So men, how we operate, a lot of men, especially, so-called like masculine men, and those are the men that aren't speaking. And so I'm speaking to that man right now. Those men really struggle with any level of weakness, specifically stigma-wise, where it's like, man, society, like vulnerability would connect it to weakness. Silence is more of a strength. I'll run through a wall. I'll outwork it. I'll muscle it, whatnot. And the reality of the situation, I didn't understand this till I got on the other side. Your number one strength is the vulnerability, and it comes in your story. I truly believe you're most perfectly positioned to help the person that you once were. To help the person you once were is who you're called to serve and who you're called to help, because you got on the other side, and there's all these men over here suffering, and your story could be the catalyst of them making a choice to change themselves.
That's powerful, powerful. And we didn't go through something for no reason. There's always a way to turn that pain into something great. And I believe telling your story is the thing that becomes great, because you've helped someone else And that's really what I mean, for me, sharing was really about hoping that no one would want to, off themselves or turn to drugs, turn to prostitution, whatever it is, whatever the things that would be.
Yeah.
And they can, if they hear a story, sometimes you never know which one of it is that'll hit, but those stories really make a difference. I've seen on Facebook, a friend of mine has a Tell Somebody page, and if
Yeah,
you
I was
saw,
on that page. Yeah.
oh, okay, that's right. That's how I found
Yeah.
this. That's right.
Yeah. That's how
That's
we
right.
found each
Yes,
other. Yeah.
yes, absolutely. That's amazing what Alicia's doing. And you don't see it until you look at all those threads and say, what? And you say, so this is happening more than we know or want to know. But guess what? Everybody's been ignoring it for years. That you have to speak about it. If you don't speak about it, not only does it get swept under the rug, but victims come back later and start harming themselves, harming others, addiction, and just all these things that happen, and they don't get to their purpose of really being here. So therefore, we, the people, miss out on something that they were supposed to give us. That's how I see it. That's how I see it with I always see it that way. So it's important that we share our story. If you can't even, if you can share it unanimously, as long as you feel safe doing it. But it really does help. And that's why I'm so happy you're here, because men, especially, they're just, I think about it as a woman, and I know women, we have a whole set of other problems. That's true. But because society says man must be strong, they get even more of a stigma, because they're not trained like we're trained to tell what our problem is. We're trained to do that. We're nurturers.
Right.
We're trained to care and to be kind, to be nice, whatever. Men are opposite. Stand your ground, be firm, don't tell the secrets, you handle that type of thing. So I get it. It's kind of almost harder for them. And with that being said, it's so important when I hear men like yourself and Sonny Von Cleveland sharing stories and creating platforms for people, creating fitness places, creating whatever it is you do. That is so important, because somebody really needs it. The suicide rate is crazy right now, and I think it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. So thank you. Tell us about Soul Fit Retreats. That's doing something very powerful, combining physical transformation with emotional and spiritual healing. What happens to people at those retreats that can't happen in the gym?
Wow. Few years back, we were called to really do something deeper on a deeper level. As I was going through my own journey and my wife was going through hers, God was really calling us through our own education and understanding of true healing to be like, now we have to help others at a deeper level than what we have done in the past, with this new gift and with this new knowledge and with this wisdom that we now have. And so I ended up, my wife and I ended up creating Soul Fit retreats. And we take groups, usually smaller groups, so anywhere between 10 and 35 people, to really beautiful locations around the world. Some in the States, some we just got back from Costa Rica a while back. We go to Mexico, we go to different places. And I'll tell you, my wife is very gifted in itinerary creation as well. And she builds really amazing, powerful locations and safe locations with all walks of life. And that's what's powerful about it, is we're believers and we're very bold in that publicly. But we get people of every walk of life that show up to this because they know what they're going to get from us, which is love, support, and an amazing community that will lift them up. A safe place. And it broke our heart to realize how many people don't even have one person that they truly can go to and talk to. And so when they get kind of like, I tell people it's kind of like jumping into the deep end and you're like, man, I don't even know if I know how to swim real well. And we kind of just do that almost from day one. And they realize like, whoa, this is not just some like bodybuilder fitness thing. That is a small speck of what we do at those retreats. Yes, we care about people's health and wellness, but we're going to the root of what is going on with these people, and we want them to have breakthroughs. And so every single retreat, we have seen just unbelievable things I can't even describe, outside of this person in 4 to 5 days is completely transformed in not only like wanting to get healthy and fit and seeing that happen from a transformational standpoint, but you know, we do one of these things we call as voices in the villain. We get just a circle of chairs, and one person will open up, and then all of a sudden you see person after person sharing some of the hardest stories in their life, stories they've never shared with anyone. And they're almost questioning themselves, like, how am I even talking to this group right now? But that's what happens when we set a safe place. The Lord is there, and we just see hearts healed and people taking those steps for true healing. And it's been unbelievable. I can't really explain Soul Fit retreats outside of breakthroughs are just happening in people's lives.
Now, where do they sign up for that on your website, correct?
Yeah, soulfitretreats.com. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you got that, guys. Wow. That sounds. How many days is it?
So it's anywhere. My wife has a women's retreat coming up in Jasper, Arkansas. We went out there. So one thing we do that's very special is we go to the location. We pray at the location. We want to stay there. We want to feel it. We want to meet the staff. If there's staff, we like all the things before we host a retreat there. And so we were just out in Arkansas and down there, and it's called Time to Climb. And she's going to lead about 25 women through a really amazing women's retreat down there for 4 days. So we either have 4 days or 5-day retreats. And then at the end of the year, we're taking a group, kind of like a let it go of what has been holding you back. And this year, we're letting it go, at end of the year deal down in Tulum, Mexico.
Oh, Tulum is beautiful. Wow.
So we'll have an intimate group down there that we're going to do as well.
Fabulous. Tulum is beautiful. Wow.
Yes, it is. It is.
I know our time is getting near, but who was going to ask you? Was there a single moment, a turning point, where you knew that you was not going back? There was no going back. That you had to face this whole thing fully.
Yeah, I mean, it was the day. It was the day that I made the commitment. I truly believe I'm a commitment person. So my yes, and my no is my no. And so when I said yes to myself, I said yes to my wife, and I said yes to the Lord, then there was no looking back. I was not going to, it was going to take me as long as it took me. I didn't put barriers. I didn't put time frames. I just said, you know, I'm going to get to a place of healing. I don't know what this looks like. I don't even know what I'm supposed to do. And that's where it started. That was day one, almost 9 years ago.
Wow, 9 years. Wow. Well, if someone's listening, if someone listening is a survivor of childhood abuse and has never told anyone, what is the very first step you would encourage them to take today?
I want you to first know that I understand the fear, how scary it is, how you feel about yourself, how it makes you feel when you even think about it. And the thought of even sharing with anybody, it's probably the most terrifying thing that you could ever imagine. And I just want you to know, I just encourage you just to have a speck of courage. Think about the people in your life. Write down the top 5 people in your life that you truly love, that you truly trust. That's what I would do first. If you have faith in your life, I would pray to the Lord, just give me the courage. Give me the courage to do this, Lord. I can't do this on my own. I need to surrender this to you, Lord. I would go there, and then when you're ready, maybe I'll say worst case scenario, you can't think of anybody in your life. there's nobody that you truly trust to that level to be able to share, then I would look at organizations. There's really great organizations out there, potentially a counselor that works in this world, maybe a pastor, someone that has authority in this space, that understands this space, that you could trust. That's what I would look for. And if there's faith there and you don't have anyone, I would say ask the Lord to bring someone in your life, and he will. He'll bring someone in your life to be able to share that.
Sure enough. Sure will. Faith is everything. What has this mission cost you personally, and what has it given you that nothing else could possibly?
The mission itself was the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life. I've stepped on stage and won a world championship against the best in the world. I've done things that, most will never be able to accomplish. But it all came from a very, very painful and hurting place inside. And I want people to understand that I could never celebrate anything. And now all I do is celebrate. I celebrate the smallest of things now. The smallest of things, every detail I now celebrate because I can actually feel it. And so I'm able now, I think more than ever, to fully understand that on the other side of this is a freedom of what I was truly created to be. And people go, oh, well, why didn't God just stop this from happening? And, and I question that for a lot of years now too. But if I hadn't gone through what I went through, I wouldn't be in the position now to help as many people as I'm going to help with the remainder of my days. Exactly. Because when you truly understand your purpose in life, you will taste joy that you never can have ever been able to comprehend. Joy comes from fulfilling purpose and helping other people get through the hardest things in their lives.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, what do you want people to take away? I'm going to put the book up again. What do you want people to feel when they finish the last page of The Breaker? What is the one thing you want them to walk away knowing?
Yesterday I got a message from a close friend who I used to train almost 10 years ago. And he wrote me a long message that I won't get into super detail about, but it was the hardest time in his life. And I didn't know he was going through as much as he was going through. He had shared stuff with me, but he clearly didn't know my story. And what he told me in that text message when he flipped the last page of the book is exactly what I want everybody to feel. You're going to process this story after you get done with this book. And it is such a powerful read. And I'm not just doing this to promote the book. It will hit you in so many different directions, and you will see yourself as that little boy or that little girl that's in that book, and the healing that happens within that. You're going to finish that book and you're going to think about your own life and go, I'm ready to do this. I can do this. And that's really what I want for people. I want people to get healed. And I want this potentially to be the book that they read, that they go, if he can do it, I can do it too.
Right. Wow. Well, thank you so much, Micah. We appreciate you for taking the time to come and be with my viewers, to share, to help in Women's Mental Health Awareness Month, because it's very important right now. So we thank you for that. And we hope that you guys, the viewers out there, will go and get the book. You see the website's up, but it's also going to be in the YouTube description where to find Micah and his lovely wife, Diana. Thank you, Diana, for helping write that book. Amazing work you're doing as well. Anytime you have something going on, you're always welcome to come back as a guest, because saving lives is what we like to do. Saving and changing lives.
I would love to.
And I love to do. So we thank you so much. And I was seeing if there was any viewer questions, but I can't see. For those of you who don't know, I've been having trouble with my eyesight. That's why you saw the glasses. So Forgive me.
Norma, thank you so much. She says thank you and your wife for your service, sharing, and good information. God bless you. God bless you too. Thank you so much.
Yes, you guys, thank you so much. Yeah, well, I see you guys out here. I'm trying to see if there's any specific question. I don't want to miss anything, just in case. Who's
that? I've found we've always been in spaces that were really popular topics. And this topic is not a super popular topic when it comes to it, but is the most important topic, one of the most important topics that we need to talk about right now. And I want to give the last few seconds that I have to just say thank you, Tanya, for not only being vulnerable and opening up about your own story, but also creating a platform for people like myself and your other guests to be able to share their stories to hopefully impact someone else. That means a lot. And I'm very grateful. Thank you.
I'm grateful. And together we all heal. That's how I see it. So thanks again, and hang out with me while I say goodbye to everybody. Okay, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I see Micah's follows on there. I can't see who your names are, but I see by the thing over here that there's some of you out there. I appreciate you all for taking the time. What I need you to do, most importantly, I need you to share this show. You know, I do not care about numbers as much as I care about people. Very important. So I need you to share it because somebody will be inspired, will be motivated, will say, oh, that wasn't just me. Wow, I can actually get help for this. So please share it. Get the book, The Breaker. Micah LaCerte and his lovely wife, Diana, did a great job. I've read it. I hope you go and get the book. Yeah, share it, please, because it's in the sharing is where the caring is and where the healing starts. Okay, so until next week, I want to thank you all for being not being our guests, for being our viewers, and all the new followers. Thank you, by the way. Please hit the subscribe button, because guess what? I'm only going to bring you information that either saves or changes a life. That's what I'm about. So if I understand that you rather have gossip, but I don't do gossip unless it heals. And we're trying to save lives. That's what we're trying to do right now. So thank you, and thank you, Micah. We appreciate it. Until next time, guys, we'll see you.